Today on the Daily Charge, 5G is everywhere, maybe even on the next iPhone. Apple's unveiling their quarterly earnings and maybe even a product lineup. And the Justice Department blesses the T-Mobile Sprint merger.
Good morning, welcome to CNET's Daily Charge. It's Monday, July 29th. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Let's take a look at today's headlines. Noise around 5G is everywhere, with networks and Android phones constantly launching with the next generation technology. But you won't see a 5G iPhone quite yet. Now there's word from analyst and Apple leaker Ming-Chi Kuo that all three of the 2020 iPhones will come packed with 5G. Are you excited, Alfred?
No, because I assume the 5G stands for $5,000. Have you seen iPhones getting much more expensive?
Yep.
They're probably going to charge a hefty fee for that. Wasn't the Galaxy S10 5G version also way more expensive?
Yes, it was like an extra $100, $200 more. Keep in mind, though, and what I like about this is that the rumor points to all three iPhones getting 5G, meaning that this is going to be a standard technology, as opposed to like a 5G variant that's way more expensive.
Yeah, I'll wait 5 years from now, though, where everything is a 5G variant and not, way more expensive.
Well, yeah, 5 years from now for sure.
Yes.
But it's nice that in, I guess, Apple's first round of 5G phones, they'll all get 5G.
Well, reportedly, we don't know if that's true.
You're right.
Yeah.
But yes, reportedly they'll all have 5G. All right. Speaking of Apple, the company is set to post its fiscal third quarter earnings results tomorrow. While we won't be hearing about the 2020 iPhones, we should hopefully get some hints about this year's upcoming lineup.
It's going to be like 8 cameras, right? Like that's like the biggest selling point on it.
We are hearing rumors of 3 cameras in this like really large black block that sits on the back of your iPhone, which I don't know. I feel like Steve Jobs would like kind of turn over in his grave seeing like how aesthetically displeasing this all is.
Well, yeah, Johnny Ives isn't there anymore.
Right, he's probably checked out. So.
Yeah, I predict that all the new stuff will just be more colors. I mean, that seems to do really well for them.
That's right. That iPhone XR had more colors, and it seemed to be a pretty good hit for them.
Great feature.
All right, now for our main story. T-Mobile and Sprint cleared a big hurdle after Justice Department blessed deal. The companies were able to achieve this by getting Dish Network involved. The satellite TV company will spend $5 billion on Sprint's prepaid business and some spectrum, which it believes it will catapult it into the wireless business.
This is a joke, right? Like this Dish Network, like really? I'm betting that I'm not going to be able to call my friends when it's like cloudy or raining out on this.
So keep in mind, what's happening is Dish is getting, they're basically getting access to the T-Mobile Sprint network. They're getting that prepaid business, so they're getting Boost, Virgin Mobile, and Sprint Prepaid. And for a while, they'll be able to ride on their own network, ride on Sprint and T-Mobile's network while they build out their own one.
I get the Justice Department's concern about this when the merger was first being proposed, where they said it could create, lack of competition.
Yep.
Is Dish Network and these networks really like a viable competition, like a network just based off prepaid networks?
I think that's the million-dollar question. T-Mobile CEO John Legere was on the call on Friday where he said, emphatically, I think 3 or 4 times, he called Dish a credible competitor, but there are a lot of skeptics about this.
Yeah, it almost seems like the guy who has the most to benefit off of this will just say anything to get it to pass through.
And yes, Dish has for years hoarded spectrum, radio frequencies that are necessary to build a wireless network, but they haven't done anything with it. And technically speaking, they were supposed to build a wireless network by next year. As a result of this whole deal, they actually got the extension. They got the government to extend their deadline to 2023. So yeah, there are a lot of folks who go, Dish, are they really serious as a wireless competitor?
And what does this mean for like T-Mobile Tuesdays if this merger goes through? Am I still getting all that free stuff? Or
T-Mobile Tuesdays most likely will still remain. I got the sense that T-Mobile isn't going to rock the boat too much. Keep in mind there's already a 3-year price lock that they put in as a guarantee as a contingent for this deal to go through. So you can imagine for T-Mobile customers, not a lot of changes. For Sprint customers, though, there's probably going to be a lot of incentives to move over.
Yeah, that 3-year price lock seems like an interesting, condition that they had. But I mean, who's to say that after 3 years, like those prices will just skyrocket after that?
That's a really good point. I think all bets are off after those next 3 years, first 3 years. And what they didn't really answer was whether or not that price lock applied to Sprint services, which are cheaper than T-Mobile. So my guess is like Sprint customers may end up having to pay a little more, but get up to that T-Mobile level.
Cool. Dish Network, thank you.
All right, if anyone wants to know more of these stories, check us out through the links below, or go ahead and start chiming in with your questions and comments about today's headlines. Thanks as always to everyone joining us here live. We stream weekday mornings at 11:15 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, Periscope, and CNET.com/dailycharge. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Twitter while we grow our channel. It's time to check in with the chat to take your questions and comments. BVG, what do we have lined up for today?
So actually got a little bit of trivia today. We haven't done this in a minute, but I like to set these aside just in case. Did you know that today is Don't Be a Dick Day?
I have to leave the show then.
I feel
I'm sorry.
like every
Thanks for
day
having
should
me.
be Don't Be a Dick Day.
Yeah, I can't be on the air if that's the case, so thank you for having me.
It's been a good run.
Can't be a dick, so gotta go.
So yeah, the story behind it is it was started by Will Wheaton of Wesley fame on Star Trek for his birthday. So happy birthday to Will Wheaton. This is a day to be honest, kind, honorable, and awesome. Also the anniversary of the National Aeronautics and Space Act, which gave birth, of course, to NASA. So go ahead and put that in your pocket, save it for the party later. I don't know what we're doing on YouTube on Don't Be a Dick Day. I certainly don't think this is an appropriate way to celebrate, but time will tell.
It's interesting, the Will Wheaton thing. Like he went from like being, you know, a star in Star Trek, and then the backlash, and now like I feel like it's turned around on Will Wheaton. There's some love for Will Wheaton now. It's interesting to see.
Alfred, any thoughts on that?
I do not know who
Doesn't
Will
even know
Wheaton
who
is.
Will Wheaton is. Wesley Crusher from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I have never watched Star Trek.
All right, you suck.
This has become like a running joke on the show. I have a feeling that Brian makes these references just to draw that out.
Let's talk about The Matrix tomorrow.
Okay, so the first question is coming in from Timothy. He says, when is the first official date of that 3-year extension?
Oh, it'll take place when the deal actually closes. So keep in mind that even though the DOJ did approve the deal, there's still some hurdles. There are a number of states' attorney generals that are still suing to block the deal. So we'll see if like this gets. They're still hoping to get it done by sometime in the third quarter, which I don't know, seems kind of unlikely to me, but. That they still need to clear the state's issues before they can actually get this thing done officially.
Yeah, the New York State Attorney General has specifically called this out, saying that this is going to be unfair to consumers who like rely on these like, you know, cheaper plans and things like that. I mean, Dish Network, come on, man, like get out of here. Like that's not no.
Yeah, so there you go.
So,
Alfred's opinions on Dish.
Interesting you should segue that way because Commander Trium asks, is Dish really that dysfunctional?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so. I mean, for a long time, it was Dish versus DirecTV. Now, DirecTV is obviously owned by AT&T, but DirecTV was always known as like the gold standard in providing pay TV. Dish was always sort of like the other guy. Mm-hmm. So in terms of its core business, it already didn't have the best reputation. So having them jump into wireless, a brand new business that they've never been in, definitely means there are a lot of skeptics out there.
I'm just saying, like, think about how frustrating it is, like, dealing with your cable company all the time, like those subscription plans when things don't work and takes forever to fix it.
Right.
Now apply that to your phone and your phone network. That's and with a company that's never done this before. I don't know. It's such a stretch to call them like a viable competitor by adding them to it, just by giving them the table scraps from Sprint and T-Mobile.
Definitely. There are, I think that's why there are a lot of folks out there who are wondering, like, what is this Dish service even going to look like?
Really looking forward to seeing the lines out the door at the Dish Network store.
Keep in mind, though, given the fact that they have access to Sprint and T-Mobile's nationwide network, they could theoretically go out there and basically charge a really cheap rate to get as many customers on. Mm-hmm. And then they've got, I believe they can't sell this business yet, but I think there's like 3 or 4 years before they can go and turn around and flip it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That is the other, the other long-term strategy is like they run the heck out of it, get as many customers aboard, and then sell it to a cable company.
How many years until T-Mobile and Sprint acquired Dish Network and merge with them?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know. We'll see how. Like I think they're going to be pretty busy integrating T-Mobile, Sprint together and absorbing Dish, which is not the most functional of companies. It might take a while.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Ayaz for pointing out it is International Tiger Day. Now I feel cool.
Cool.
If T-Mobile makes...
Like Tiger Woods?
No, tigers.
I
like
hope
tigers.
not.
Oh.
Like the animals.
I don't care about that.
Right? You care about Tiger Woods more than tigers?
He's back.
That's iffy.
In
You
pog
won one
form.
major.
Okay, if T-Mobile makes changes to their prices, do you think other carriers will follow suit, or will there be one carrier to start the next un-carrier movement?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, going back to my theory about Dish, like if there's anyone that's going to put out more competitive pricing, it might be Dish. They don't have as much to lose. They're theoretically going to be building out their own network, but they're riding on Sprint T-Mobile, so costs are relatively contained there. So they could offer more aggressive pricing to get folks on, especially if they're running it as a prepaid business, as a larger scale prepaid business. Like I said, T-Mobile has sort of agreed to lock in their prices for 3 years, so I don't see them making a lot of moves that require AT&T or Verizon to follow them.
Next question is coming in from our friend from the north, Commander Trium. Doesn't Dish have applications in the field of remote access up in Canada, for example?
I'm not aware of their operations in Canada, or if they even have business in Canada. I know they have a lot of spectrum, and they had like test networks built out, but nothing remotely consumer ready. In fact, for a while they were going to scrap the idea of even having wireless service, and they wanted to build a whole like IoT network, like a network that would connect, I don't know, trucks or ATM machines or something. But because of this deal, that they are now obligated to build out a wireless network using the spectrum they have.
Yeah, nothing says building out a good network like we're obligated to do it. We were gonna quit, but now we're forced to do it.
They were obligated to do it, but they didn't do it. That was the thing. They spent years facing this deadline that was coming, and they did nothing. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a very reliable network to me. The company
Sounds like
that's
the service you want to jump on, right?
Oh, we have to do this. we pushed it off for so long, and now we actually have to do it. Yeah, that's gonna be amazing service, guys.
There you go.
Is the 5G network already ready? Why are we rolling out 5G capable phones that fast? I hope we don't have to pay extra for that.
That is a great question. I think this year is that kind of awkward year where 5G is live in very, very select places, right? I know in Europe and Australia, the network's and Korea, the network's a little bit broader. Out here, the networks are really more hotspots. The devices are coming out just because they have to come out at this point. Folks want to be first. They want the bragging rights, and yeah, some of the devices cost more, and the service isn't great. Like unless you go to a specific block or intersection, you're not going to get 5G.
How much do these bragging rights like really matter though? Like, who was the first to have 4G?
Verizon was the first to have a broad-based 4G network, and it really helps cement their reputation for network superiority.
So, like a lot of people like get Verizon like specifically because they remember that then?
The thing of it is, it's sort of a ripple effect, right?
Sure,
like
yeah.
they're the first to 4G. They could talk about how their network's amazing, and it cements the reputation. And yeah, the end consumer may not necessarily buy Verizon because it's a 4G network, but they have it in their head that the network is good, the coverage is good, and I'm just going to go
That's
with
fair,
Verizon.
yeah.
So it is pretty important for these carriers to go out and say they're first. That's why you saw all the kind of like the gamesmanship between AT&T and Verizon about who was first. Though in the end, it didn't really matter because those networks were barely available to anyone's anyways.
Yeah.
So, but it's like the ripple effect of like whether or not this will actually kind of aid their perception of service down the line.
But as we all know, it is nowhere near as important as being first in the comments. And by the way, Ayaz is stealing all of our thunder right now, Mr. Celebrity up here in the chat room.
Is he making his own show also, like plugging it in the chat?
Not yet.
Don't watch this show. Come to my stream.
Wouldn't that be great if we just started kind of cannibalizing everything here?
He's streaming right there. He's streaming outside of our room.
I don't have a camera that points that way. Okay, from CKT, my wife and I have used all the carriers, and now I am a diehard Google Fi subscriber. Do you guys think Google Fi will continue to grow?
That's a good question. I mean, right now they run on the T-Mobile Sprint network, so even if the two got together, it doesn't really affect Google Fi that much. I don't know if it's going to grow. I feel like...
Didn't they just cancel a project in like Kentucky or something?
I think that was their fiber project. So that was more their landline stuff. But Louisville, actually,
yes.
But in terms of expansion, I don't know. Like Google's never... I feel like they're kind of halfway serious about their wireless service. Like, it's not a bad deal, actually.
No,
the service is great. And the kind of like the tiered or the flexible pricing aspect of it's great, but they haven't really like promoted it or...
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it's a very interesting concept, and I think a lot of people would rather move to that than deal with carriers.
Yeah.
But at the same time...
But that's the thing. If you look at what most Americans do, they still go to a carrier store, right?
Yeah.
They still want that advice generally. Most people aren't super tech savvy when it comes to like choosing the right plans, the right phones. And that's why you get for folks who are Google Fi customers, a lot of them are more tech savvy.
Yeah.
They're more comfortable just doing it online.
Yeah, they're the only ones that even know that Google Fi exists.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, next question is coming in from our friend Tim. Is it safe to say that T-Mobile will keep CMDAs from Sprint? Having both GSM and CMDA would be nice. And once again, disclaimer, apologies for the hammering. Our building is currently under construction, and there is nothing I can do about it.
Our show has a hangover.
Yeah,
and
Ryan, could you re-ask that question of the hammering? I couldn't hear the question of the hammering.
Sure, let's try this again. Is it safe to say that T-Mobile will keep CMDAs from Sprint? Having both GSM and CMDA would be nice.
So that's a great question. No, most likely they're going to sunset. It's CDMA. It's the technology that Sprint uses on their phones. Most likely they're going to sunset that and move everyone over to the T-Mobile network. The transition is going to be a little bit more painless because most phones now run on multiple networks. So regardless, if you have a Sprint phone, it'll work on a T-Mobile network anyways. So but the odds are they want to get rid of the CDMA technology. They want to use that spectrum and put that towards 5G. So ultimately, that's what this deal is about, is trying to get as much of the spectrum available for 5G to build it out as robustly as possible.
Is it better to get a 5G hotspot for the whole family at home? Would that actually save money in the long run?
It's a little unclear at this point because the prices are kind of early, and I don't know what the throttle limits are, but again, if your house miraculously has 5G coverage, like, it might be worth a shot. But keep in mind that the coverage is still pretty limited. So I wouldn't count on using the 5G mobile service as like a standalone, as your like sole cable provider or internet provider for a while. That I know some of these companies are working on 5G as a home broadband replacement, but what you're talking about is not that. And so I imagine the carriers will find ways to limit you if that's what you want to do.
We got a question from Jay from Jersey, who I am not completely convinced is not Jeff Bakalar masquerading in the chat. Currently have Verizon. Do you think the new T-Mobile will compete? Verizon definitely has the best image out there amongst the people I know.
I mean, yeah, the T-Mobile has been competing pretty effectively over the last, 4 years or so. They've posted like 20-something odd quarters of like 1 million subscribers each quarter. And they've been taking share away from Verizon. Keep in mind, Verizon is like way bigger. That's partly why Sprint and T-Mobile want to get together. But yeah, like I imagine T-Mobile will, the new T-Mobile will be effective in competing against Verizon and AT&T.
But what about like performance-wise? I know they've been taking away customers because they're cheaper, but like as far as like customer satisfaction and things like that, like is it geared better this way?
That's a great question. I think the combination of the spectrum that they have, like looking ahead towards like future 4G and 5G coverage, I think they'll be on par, and in some ways arguably better than what Verizon has from a 5G perspective, because Verizon's 5G network really is at this point just hotspots, whereas Sprint's is actually pretty, the coverage is a lot wider. And so combining that with T-Mobile's plans, which also are shooting for a wider 5G coverage, they could have a better offer than Verizon, at least in the near term.
We got time for just a couple more. Ryan asks, I was reading about RCS this morning. Any updates as to when Google will finally be rolling this out to everybody?
It's a great question. We don't have an update. Rich communication services, or like the advanced text messages, are that's what Google kind of wants to use to replace a lot of its chat services or its messaging for Android, but we still haven't heard a lot of word on that.
People still use, why don't you just use like other messaging apps that are available?
So the idea is like with RCS, like a lot of the perks and features you get on messaging apps will like migrate over to your text message. Like your text messages will be a lot more advanced, but so the idea is like it can work on any phone. You don't need to download a new app or new messenger service. It just works on your default.
Does that
text
include
service.
like encryption or?
I'm not entirely sure actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because
that's a pretty big perk on a lot of messaging
for sure.
apps now.
I believe it's addressed, but I'm not 100% sure.
Besides unlimited data, text, and talk being included with every plan, what other perks are going to come with these carriers? Maybe streaming service bundles, something like that?
After the deal, or?
Yeah, after the deal.
I mean, that's a question I have, because I'm not entirely sure those perks are going to continue, because you have basically 3 big competitors and then Dish off the side. And usually
Dish is going to be equal to them, as John Legere says.
You're right. But you've got 3 major competitors, and usually when you have one less competitor, the perks and the deals tend to shrink a little bit, right? They tend to be a little bit more. The competition isn't as fierce, and so You're going to see carriers be a little bit less aggressive with some of these perks. I asked T-Mobile this directly on Friday. They said that's ridiculous. I'm dumbfounded you would even ask that question. Of course, we're going to continue to be aggressive, but you never know. With 3 competitors, it's one less competitor means a lot less competition. Means folks don't have to bend over backwards to win your business as much.
And will there be portable hotspot devices that will be 5G capable?
Yes, there already are. Sprint already has one available. If you live in like the 4 or 5 cities that it's available, I guess it's cool. But yes, you'll probably see a lot more hotspots. I believe AT&T has like a 5G modem that it sells, but of course its consumer service isn't available to anyone. So yeah, there's that.
I find it fascinating that we put it in the headline. We talked about it, or it's in the description. It's not in the headline, but no one's chirping about Apple today, and I'm okay with it.
That's cool.
Who?
No, he's saying no one's talking about Apple.
Yeah, what is that?
Orple.
Oh, I guess they're cool. I don't know what they do. Are they like a Dish Network thing?
Yes, they're totally like a Dish Network thing.
Okay.
It's just unique. Usually we bring up Apple once, and that's the chat for the rest of the day. I'm somewhat relieved, if not.
Yeah, because people
therapeutic.
care about their mobile service provider, and now that there's like less competition, they want to know what they're gonna get out of this.
Fair enough. That's about all the time we got for the day. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll be back tomorrow. Roger, why don't you go ahead and cue us on out?
Yep. Thank you again for joining us. Tag us online and let us know what you want to see on the show. For the Daily Charge, I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Thanks for
I
listening.
owe him $5 for doing that now.